Resting with me. How you feeling?
So. It's going to be recovering, It's going to be recovered. It's not easy.
Okay, so in the Mimer, we discussed how the Sukkah has in it two paradoxical components. On the one hand, the Sukkah is meant to be a place where you dwell in permanently. On the other hand, this type of structure that you're dwelling in permanently is meant to be a temporary structure. And we learned how there are, the meaning of this is connected to the purpose of creation, where on the one hand, Hashem tells us that the world is a place of change. On the other hand, Hashem tells us in this place of change, He wants us to have a permanent connection to our mission, to our role. It is a place of change in a positive sense as well. You're supposed to go from strength to strength and higher. But Hashem wants us in this place of change, which could also be changed in a negative sense, to be steadfast and permanently attached to our mission, whatever Hashem is asking us to do, whether it's a mitzvah, whether it's something mundane that's meant to be done for the purpose of a mitzvah. But that's a parallel for the mitzvah of Sukkah in our lives. We also learned how mitzvahs themselves, on the one hand, they are very precise in how they're done, and you're not allowed to add any mitzvahs, you can't subtract from them. On the other hand, what we accomplish to do mitzvahs is we draw down the infinite light of Hashem to this world. So again, we see this concept of infinity, unchanging, going on forever, brought into a world that has definition and limitation. So the goal is that through our Aveda, through our service of Hashem, throughout the time of Golus, we are going to, our engagement with the physical world and the mundane is meant to transform it so that when Mashiach comes, not only is the neshama able to nourish the body better, but the opposite. Mashiach comes, the body will nourish the neshama. As the pasuk says, Mashiach will come, all flesh will see the word of Hashem. All flesh meaning the body itself will have a vivid perception of godliness, and that will enhance the neshama's appreciation for godliness. So when Mashiach comes, the body will nourish the neshama. And that's achieved through our Aveda in this world, through Torah and mitzvahs done in the physical. Okay. Then we started to describe something else. We said that our forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they merited to be able to see the world to come while they were alive. They were able to experience something of the future while they were living here in this world. The Rebbe Marash says that when you do a mitzvah, it's sort of like putting a diamond in a box. It's putting a light in the box, in Atzilus, in the highest world of Atzilus. So you're drawing down this light. When Mashiach comes, you'll see those diamonds. But our forefathers merited to not just have them in the box, but they were able to perceive some of that. Parenthetically, it says one of the ways that they're able to see this was because Torah says that the imahis, our matriarchs, had a superior prophecy to them. And God told Avram to listen to whatever Sarah said. So there was some element over there of the future, because that the fact that a woman is higher than a man and that the matriarchs are higher than the patriarchs, that's something that will be revealed when Mashiach will come. But the bottom line is they were able to see something of that future. And we are called children of our patriarchs, and therefore we're also able to draw down into our lives something of this future vision. It's not something that's just meant to be in the future. It's something we have today. We see this in the Torah's command to sit in the sukkah. Torah says all the ezrachs, every ezrach should be in a sukkah. What's an ezrach? The Jewish people are calling many things in the Torah, but here is the only place the Torah calls us an Ezrach. The word Ezrach, we said, means, points, anyone remembers? Just give me a thumbs up if you remember, Zev. Remember. Ezrach means, I will shine. That means, Baal Shem Tov says, when you're sitting in the sukkah, the part of you that will be revealed, Mashiach will come, that part of you experiences the future in the sukkah. In other words, while you're sitting in the sukkah, it's like Mashiach has come already, and you're eating the Levyasan, the Sheraber, and you're there in the future. Some part of you that senses that future while you're in the sukkah. And not just that you're sitting in the sukkah, but the word sitting in the sukkah means to take things internally. So being in the sukkah and being in touch with the deepest part of your neshama, that's something which you're able to take in stride, to internalize, so it becomes part of you. So now now that answers a question we had in the beginning of the discourse, which was, how come we need the words, every Jewish citizen shall sit in the sukkah? How come that part of the verse is necessary to teach us that there's unity in the sukkah? Why can't we just put the word every Jew should be in the sukkah to teach us that every Jew could be in the same sukkah? And the answer is that although we all have a commonality, we also have differences. There's 12 tribes and there's 7 branches in there, and everyone has their role to play. And it's only the deepest part of ourselves, the highest part of the neshama, that unites us and makes us the same. So the first part of the pasuk, which says "You shall sit in the sukkah," doesn't draw on and highlight the Mashiach element in the sukkah, and therefore it doesn't mention the unity. Only the end of the verse, where it says, "All the citizens, all the ones who will shine, will sit in the sukkah." The Torah there emphasizes the inclusive every citizen, only because of that future revelation of the neshama do we really have this higher level of unity. So it's the end of the verse specifically where the Gemara is able to learn that we're all able to be in the same sukkah. Okay, we're up to now page 11, Ois Zayin. Oh, one more important point. One important point is as follows, before I go further. It's not only that Hashem gives us a glimpse into the future while we're sitting in the sukkah. It's more. It's that our future experience gives us some insight to our present one. So although our higher level of unity is something that's about what will happen when Mashiach will come, that illuminates our present reality, so that we're able to embrace each other and really to let go of our differences in the sukkah because of that glimpse into the future. So I'm not looking at Reb Zev and Chaim Peretz as Reb Zev and Chaim Peretz who have stepped on my toes sometimes maybe or whatever. I'm looking at them as my brothers because I have that sense of the future, a sense of how things will be after Mashiach comes. It's not only that Hashem gives a glimpse in the future. That glimpse in the future does something to our present, so that so the first half of the verse, which talks about sitting in the sukkah now, and the second half of the verse, which talks about what the sukkah tells us about the future, is connected. Why can we all be together in the 7 days, in the place of 7 days represents the 7 kinds of people, in the place of where there is friction, where there's fragmentation? How can we're able to let go of those differences and be together is because of that future revelation that we're experiencing while we're in the sukkah. Let's go now to Ezayin. Although all that we learned till now has a message to our entire service of Hashem, but it's especially connected to Sukkos. That we find many things, and especially our holidays like Pesach, which is called the head of all the holidays, that all matters of Torah mitzvahs that we do are called a remembrance to the Exodus of Egypt. And so too is this in regards to the day that God gave us the Torah, that through that day of the holiday of Shavuos, the whole year becomes permeated with Torah. And so too is this with the holiday of Sukkos, So it may be highlighted today, but it's not something which is about today. It's about the entire year. Like Pesach and Shavuos, which aren't just individual days, they're days which impact the rest of the year. What this means is like this: the holiday of Sukkot is called the holiday of gathering. It's a time we gather in our crops and our wine, our vineyard, our grapes, which spiritually indicates that it's a time of gathering in all of our mitzvahs for the whole year. And this itself, of gathering, this activity of gathering in all our mitzvahs, even though there were moments or things that need to be rectified or they need to be perfected, but after our service to Hashem in the month of Elul, and the days of Slichas, and Rosh Hashanah, and the 10 days to Shani and Kippur, which is a holiest day of the year, and the 4 days to Yom Kippur and Sukkos. So although there were things that by some people, they were previously aversed on a purpose, they have already been transformed into actual merits. And therefore it's possible for every single Jew to dwell in the Sukkah for 7 days, and even more, that every Jewish citizen should dwell in the Sukkah, that this could happen to every single Jew, and it could happen in a way that all the Jewish people are able to be in one Sukkah. If the Torah tells us about people who act in the wrong way before they do tshuva, that they are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. I was referring to the Talmud says that even the sinners of Israel are full of mitzvahs. So if the Torah says about the sinners of Israel that they're full of mitzvahs, how much more so in the month of Tishrei, as a Medrash says, that what does the word Tishrei mean? Tishrei comes from the word to let go and to be cleansed. That's what the month of Tishrei is about letting go of negativity and being cleansed. So right at the beginning of the month of Tishrei, the Torah tells us the mitzvah of the days of the Shofar. That the word Shofar comes from the word Shapru, which means to better your deeds, that there is an enhancement of all of the things that were done the entire year. And since the holiday of Sukkot is the ingathering of all these things, etc., therefore the Torah says 3 times, which doesn't say this by other holidays, because it says 3 times to be joyful. And the holiday of Pesach says once, the holiday of Shavuos says once to be joyful. And in the holiday of Sukkot says 3 times to be joyful. Why? Because that is the time of the greatest joy. It's similar to the joy that a child, an only child to a king, when he returns back to his father, the king, after being far from him, it causes a great joy to the king. And this is relevant even to the greatest tzaddik. It says in Tanya that even the greatest tzaddik who loves Hashem with the love of delight, nevertheless, he's still considered a thing, a someone who loves. So therefore, when a person thinks about this, for sure he will have tshuva with the greatest power, the greatest storm, with the greatest strength and greater power. And he will be in a state of his spirit will cleave to the one who gave him that spirit while he's alive. Doesn't mean that he'll die, but while he's alive, his spirit will cleave to Hashem to go to even higher level, even to ascend to a level which is incomparably greater than level is until now. That means he will ascend from being just someone who loves Hashem, but still someone who loves, to be in a state of total abnegation of self, which is a whole higher level. If Rav Zev shows me his screen, then I'll tell him to do Sukkos and Torah. Oh, thank you, Zev. So the Rebbe mentions here.
I'm following in the memory.
Okay, good. Oh, very good, very good. I get extra points. Okay, so just to understand a little bit deeper what we just said, I Baruch Hashem learned a whole explanation of what we just learned 2 days ago. The simple thing the Yalkut is saying, it says, be happy once on Pesach, be happy once on Shavuos, happy 3 times on Sukkot. So what's the be happy once, be happy twice? What does it mean? So there's 2 layers to this. The simple meaning is that this is from a talk of the Rebbe from 1960. The simple meaning is then the holiday of Pesach, okay, it's the harvest time for wheat. Okay, so you're joyful about the wheat. What about your barley? What about other stuff? Comes Shavuos, says be happy again. because you're happy about the barley also being harvested. Great. But what about your fruit and stuff? So there comes the holiday of Sukkos, and you're happy with everything. It's all the gathering of all the crops. So you're satisfied because everything has grown. Everything has been harvested. That's what it means on a simple level. But then it takes us to a whole deeper level. Unbelievable. The holiday of Pesach is a time of strengthening our emunah, our faith in Hashem. Although we are believers, children of believers, but our faith has limitation. And the Talmud says it's possible to be someone who cries out to God to help you still. But the holiday of Pesach is meant to bring our faith front and center, to be something that we live with. Okay, faith. Faith is a joyful thing. We're sad. That brings happiness to Hashem, happiness to us. But there's limitation to faith. Are you going to take that faith and do something with it? Comes the holiday of Shavuos. The holiday of Shavuos, there's a resolve. We say to Hashem, we're going to do this. So we say Nasim and Nishma. We accept the Torah. So not only have we been souped up with this faith in Hashem, but we've taken this faith and we made it actionable. We made a permanent commitment to keeping the Torah. Nasim and Nishma we will do before we understand. Okay. But the holiday of Shavuos is also unlimited. Commitment. Mendel Futterfass used to say about Jews from Odessa. Don't tell us to Moretsky. I think he's from Odessa. Mendel said that Jews from Odessa have a hard time committing to something. They have a hard time. They say they don't like to commit. But once they commit, Mendel said, for sure it's a lie. They don't like to commit. Because when they commit, it's for sure a lie. So Jews at Har Sinai, we said we're going to keep the whole Torah. Okay, but is it going to be real? Are we really going to do this? So what happens between Shavuos and Sukkos? It's fascinating. Between Shavuos and Sukkos, we descend and we fall with a golden calf. You would think after we've fallen, what happens when we make a mistake? We make a mistake, it weakens your resolve to do good things because you start identifying with your mistakes, makes you think about yourself as a lowlife. So after we had that descent, what did? We did Shuvah for it. We came back to the Eibishter, we came close to Hashem, despite our descent, despite the fact that we've fallen. We came back. So that shows, so comes the holiday of Sukkot. We've had a Yom Kippur. We have a celebration on Yom Kippur of coming back to Hashem. We say Shechiyanu. What's a Shechiyanu about Yom Kippur? Shechiyanu is we thank God that you've forgiven us. We thank God, the Rebbe just said that we were like the child to come back home. Now we know that we made a different stuff. Now we know that we got something here. It's not just we have this great, beautiful, childlike faith. Not just we have this great, beautiful resolve of sincerity of we're married to Hashem and we have this, this lechte chafraim midbar, walk after Hashem in the desert with sincerity. No, okay, that's great. But what happens if we'll fall? Comes the holiday of Sukkot, and the holiday of Sukkot shows us that even when we fall, we come back to the Eibishter, which is really a whole different kind of attachment. That shows that no matter what happens to us, we'll come back. For me, this is a very fascinating idea. The holiday of Sukkot is considered a level up because it's after we've fallen. Once you fall, that's when the Torah says you might think that you're not going to get back up. When do you know that we're really attached to the Eibishter, we're not going to let go? After we have a golden calf. The golden calf shows the Eibishter that even those who've done the golden calf and they've done really terrible stuff, the fact that they're coming back, that shows that our bond is unshakable, that we're in this to the end. So that's the holiday of Sukkot is the greatest joy. It has it in all three levels of joy. Okay. Where do we go? Okay. So this causes greatest satisfaction to Hashem, and this is something which is relevant to even a tzaddik, because even a tzaddik could ascend from being a somebody to being batal metzias. So from the holiday of Sukkot, we're supposed to take with us the entire year, that there should be a year of going from strength to strength, and in the simcha, which is beyond all limitations, and that simcha of the holiday of Sukkot should be drawn down in our performing the mitzvahs with joy. And through this, we'll be able to gather our crops and our vineyards in a simple sense. That what that means is that by having simcha in our mitzvahs, this will give us simcha from our children and from our health and from our parnas in a comfortable way. The simcha that we have in doing mitzvahs that brings down simcha and the gashmias. Here what's going on, Abzev. The Rambam says that a person needs, that Hashem needs, and he has to give every single Jew whatever they need, because they need to learn Torah and do mitzvahs comfortably, with a sense of absolute tranquility. So that when they have tranquility, then they're able to understand the Torah and to learn Torah in general. And also to be devoted to doing mitzvahs. You can't be devoted to doing mitzvahs when you have all these worries in your head. So therefore, the Eibusher has to support the Jewish people with Torah and with mitzvahs in a perfect way, in a way that there's nothing disturbing you, and all that there is just, that's what we're supposed to feel. That God sanctified us with His mitzvahs and He commanded us. And that's all there is. That's how Hashem is supposed to give us, says the Rambam, so that we have nothing to worry about. So it's understood simply that we'll do what we're supposed to do if we have everything taken care of. So, in short, we're supposed to take from the holiday of Sukkot tremendous joy, and that joy is meant to translate in our joy in our mitzvahs. And our joy in our mitzvahs translates and draws down God's blessing to have abundance in all areas of life, that we actually have simcha in every area, so that there's nothing to worry about. As the Rambam says, Hashem has to give us whatever we need, and then we're able to do the mitzvahs because nothing disturbing us. And since the holiday of Sukkot includes in it and gathers in it all ways of serving Hashem, therefore it says in the holiday of Sukkot that you should sit in that sukkah for 7 days, which that the emphasis of the 7 days highlights the general presence of a Jew in the world. I am assuming because it's 7 days, therefore it includes all of time. That doesn't specify here. But the being in the sukkah for 7 days is about making the world a home for Hashem, a permanent home. And the way that every Jewish citizen sits in the sukkah, that means that even when we're still in the 7 days of Sukkot, which means we're in a time of sukkah, a time of temporary, because only after the holiday of Sukkot do we have Shmini Atzeres, which Shmini Atzeres is something beyond the 7. 7 is considered finite. It's considered temporary. When do we have something which is infinite? That's in Shmini Atzeres. So, but even before we get to Shmini Atzeres, Torah says all Jewish citizens should sit in the sukkah. That means, just like Hashem showed our forefathers, the future, while they're still alive, because of the level of Yechida, because of the deepest part of our neshama. So Hashem already shows us, even in the time of exile, the future of the coming Mashiach while we're in the sukkah. So although we haven't arrived in Shmini Atzeres yet, we haven't arrived in the coming Mashiach yet, but Hashem already shows us and lets us be in touch with in our sukkah, the deepest part of ourselves. And this is the theme of the entire month of Tishrei, starting from Rosh Hashanah, which Rosh Hashanah has only one solitary mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of Shefer, and every single sound is kosher for a Shefer. And which more, so this is drawn down into Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is called the one singular unique day of the year, and both of them together, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, are revealed on Sukkot. Whatever happens on Shana Yom Kippur, it's like a seed being planted. When is that seed revealed? It's on Sukkot. How do we see that what happens on Shana Yom Kippur are revealed in Sukkot? Because Torah says you should blow shofar in the month where, in the holiday where the moon is hidden. And that will be revealed, says the Torah, on the day of our holiday. Blow the shofar in the holiday where the moon is hidden, which means Rosh Hashanah. And that will be revealed on the day of our holiday, which means on the day of Sukkot. So whatever was hidden, just like the moon is hidden, all the spiritual light that's hidden in Rosh Hashanah is revealed on the day of our holiday, the day of Sukkot. And so too regarding Yom Kippur, it says that the cloud of the incense that the Kohen Gadol makes, that becomes that becomes the clouds of glory on the holiday of Sukkot. That becomes the schach on the Sukkah. And we're able to sit in the Sukkah. There are all these great revelations we're able to internalize in the Sukkah of every single Jew. And that's the reason why the holiday of Sukkot is called a time of our joy, as the Chassidus explains, that the words our joy are about two kinds of joy. It's a time when God rejoices with the Jewish people, and it's a time when Jewish people rejoice in God. And this joy is in a way that allows us to break through all limitations and barriers. And together with breaking through all these barriers, it says in the Torah, you should rejoice in your maker, in the plural. It describes God in the plural, in your makers. And it says God should rejoice in his works, also in the plural. In other words, we're talking on the one hand about the one God and our unique relationship with him. On the other hand, we're talking about bringing that down into a place of plurality and fragmentation. And specifically in this place where it looks like there's many forces, looks like there's many gods. The Alter Rebbe writes in chapter 33 in Tanya, that when the Torah says, rejoice God, rejoice Israel in your makers, the Torah is emphasizing that the greatest joy is when you have faith in Hashem in a place of darkness, like outside of Israel, and you're still able to bring out your joy and your faith in your joy and your emunah in Hashem, that causes much greater joy to Hashem because there's much greater light that comes from darkness. So the Torah is talking about our joy and Hashem's joy in us, and it emphasizes the word makers, Hashem's works, his creations. Why? Because we're talking about how the greatest joy is specifically in the place of fragmentation. That's the place where there is joy. Both that's a place where the Jewish people have joy, and that's a place where God has joy. And this affects and permeates the physical body of a Jew. And through the physical body of a Jew, this also impacts the area in the world that you're in, that you cause joy to your surroundings and to your area in the world. As it says in the Torah, when you bring the first fruits, you're supposed to say, I have brought joy, I have been happy, and I made others happy with a true joy. And there's no greater joy than taking a physical thing and a created thing and making from that a home for Hashem. And this causes a Jew to experience God's pleasure and God's joy, as the Marash writes at length. So from this Yontif, we're supposed to carry the whole year to have joy, and it was emphasizing here that the joy we're having is specifically in the physical world. This is a place of God's joy. This is a place of our joy. And the joy that we have is meant to affect us physically so that people around us get happier because they're in our presence. The simcha is supposed to be in a way that I've been happy and I've caused others to be happy. That's where we're supposed to go. I'll do one more paragraph. In addition to this, right at the start of the service of Hashem, of what the Torah says in this Sukkah, you shall dwell for 7 days, which, as we said before, that as soon as you start, you're already experiencing that citizen thing, that futuristic vision of the coming Mashiach. The Torah says on day one, you should take for yourself on day one, which the number one is associated with the sphere of Keser, the crown, not just the crown, but the inner dimension of the crown, which the parallel for the crown in divinity. There is level of the crown which is higher in the world of Atzilus, especially the inner dimension of the crown, and because the external dimension of the crown is still a source for creation, but the inner dimension of the crown is way beyond creation. So the parallel for the inner dimension of the crown in ourselves is the transcendent levels of the soul, the level of Yechidah. And so what did the Torah tell us? On the first day of Sukkos, day one, you're starting off. You're not yet reached the Shmini Atzeres thing yet. You haven't reached the infinite level yet. The Torah says already at day one, you're able already to take the mitzvah Luv and Esrog, and we'll see in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow why mitzvah Luv and Esrog is able to be achieved on day one of Sukkot without any preparation. Just as soon as we start, Mitzvah Hashem will be able to do the Luv and Esrog. Any questions or comments?
Good question.
Yes.
What was the one-word definition of Tishrei again?
To leave.
To leave.
Let go of.
Oh, let go. Right. Okay.
Let go of all the negativity.
We're going to let go of the negativity.
Yeah.
That's for
You
sure.
should be so
Day
happy.
by day, we're getting
People
better.
around us should be happy. Huh?
Day by day, we're getting better. I mean, I'd like it to be instantaneous, but day by day, we're getting better.
Baruch Hashem. Gesund und stark und freilich und ein gut Jante, ein freilichen Jante.
Thank you.